Well, hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and whoever you're lucky enough to be doing it to. I'm Bushka on Blitz, and I've heard the roar. People want more French light tank reviews because they are currently grinding up the lines. And what I'm doing is annoying everyone by going in reverse from 10 down. But if I hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had the huge furor about the bat chat and the on-the-move camouflage that we did at tier 9 and 10. So, like, drama. I really love light tanks, as you probably know. And it was with some surprise that I struggled in this tank. I really did. On NA anyway. And a lot of that's got to do with just the randomness that sometimes happens, even in reasonably large sample sizes. I've played 50 odd games in this tank now across 2 servers, 55 games in fact across 2 servers. And I've had very mixed results. I've had very, very good games and very, very bad games. And one of the things I've found is that the tank is more than most light tanks, very reliant on the teams. And I look at the numbers on this tank and they excite me because, quite frankly, I love lights, I love fast tanks, I love tanks with good camo, and this is all 3 of those things. It has very, very good, well, not DPM. The DPM is terrible. By DPM, I mean damage per minute. It's basically the lowest you can get at this tier in a light tank. It's 2,047 damage per minute, which is exceptionally low, and it's very poor, and it's actually lower than the tier 7 French light tank, the AMX 1375. It clocks up at 2,158 DPM. And where this tank suffers from its DPM is simply on the reload of the magazine. It's just a touch too long. The shell burst is hard to fault. It's only a 2-second gap between the shells. So that means you can fire at 0, you fire 1 shell. At 2 seconds, you fire your 2nd shell. And at 4 seconds, you fire your 3rd shell. So you can get 3 shots off in 4 seconds, which is excellent. And those are the kind of things I look at on paper and say, that's brilliant. There's 2 things that I think are against this tank for me at the moment. One of them is just the random nature of small sample size. 50 games might seem like a lot, but it's not really a lot. And you're going to see from the gameplay, I quite often play it very sensibly and do really, really well in it. And at other times, it just doesn't work for me. And the second thing is the T49A. It's very unfair to be judging this tank in a world where I am constantly faced with teams with 2 to 3 T49As on them. Because T49As, and look at the ping I'm dealing with at the moment, like, honest to God, it's just crazy. T49As are the most natural predator for this tank you've ever seen. They are derpasauruses. They just basically push on you, they will press the button, and you will lose half your hit points. And there's not much you can do about that because people know how to drive them. People have driven them a lot, and I think they're a bit of a blight in the game. And they're certainly very bad for very lightly armoured light tanks like the AMX 1390, like the RU251, like the, you know, you're getting the point. It's a jilted playing field at the moment, a tilted playing field, because it's just not the same. In a few days, the T49A is going to disappear, and one of the biggest issues you're going to have is going to go with it. Why is it such a big issue? Well, it's got the same kind of speed you've got, maybe not quite as quick, but very, very close. It's got the same kind of camouflage you've got, on-the-move light tank camo. So it's very easy for that tank to track you and hunt you, and it does because people love doing big numbers, and you've got a terrible armor profile, as we're going to have a look at the armor profile in a sec, and they can do very big numbers on you. So the introduction of the T49A has been very negative for this tank. But as that goes, I think this tank will do better. It's only a few percentage points, but at the end of the day, the difference between 58 and 60% is 2%. So getting another couple of percentage points may make me feel more charitable towards the tank and may actually make me do a little bit better. But it's hard to fault the tank in terms of numbers. And one of the reasons that I worry about this is that I did the Helsing at one point, and I played about 30 games in the Helsing and had just tremendously bad RNG. Everything was missing. I streamed it. I got smashed in the tank. Nothing went right. And then I did a review on it. I went away from it. I came back to it a week later, started driving it again, and the tank was perfect. The tank was unbeatable. The tank was absolutely brilliant. It was at the height of its powers. I was double tapping people. Watch me go for the death or glory here. I'm looking for the intro screenshot of diving off a cliff and shooting a tank to win the game, and it just didn't really come off. Let's have a look at the armor profile, and that's what I'm worried about, doing the Helsing with this. Let's talk armor. And we're going to have a look at one of the tanks that you will have an awful lot of trouble with if you're silly enough to stay in front of it for any length of time. That is the KV2. Now, the KV2 is going to be using his AP rounds in this instance. That's 110 millimeters of AP pen. It's not a lot of pen. In fact, it's very, very low pen. And the scary part is it doesn't look like hit skins are turned on here because when I look at the tank, everything, oh bugger, everything is pennable at 110 millimeters. Everything is pennable at 110 millimeters. Now that is a big issue for the tank. You are so fragile. So let's try it with the HE pen. Oh dear God. That is a 150 millimeter through the mantlet for nearly 1,000 damage. Yeah, the KV2 is completely unimpressed. Color me unsurprised, it gets wrecked. What it does have going for it is speed. Like my good friend Elliot Smith once said, we're running some speed trials. Now this is the RU251. The RU251 is a very, very fast tier 8 light tank. It's one of your competitors. And you can see that you keep pace with the RU right up to the 65 kilometer an hour mark where you top out, and the RU keeps going as he tops out at 80 kilometers an hour. So that's a really good indicator that the tank is in fact a very, very mobile tank. It can really move and shake. It doesn't have crazy good traverse numbers, but it's got very, very good camouflage. This is the camo. There's a T49 next to me here, driven by my good mate JC Ware. Now, the camo on the T49, this is from the 263 meters view range of my Lerva on the NA server. The camo on the T49 is not quite as good as the camo on the AMX 1390. You can see at 204 meters, I can see JC, and at about 191, 192 meters, I'm seeing me. The difference is JC's a tier 5 perk on his camo, and I've got a tier 6. So it's probably a lot closer than that, probably about 200 meters versus 191, 192. So there's about an 8 meter difference. But that's a considerable amount when you're talking about light tanks. When you're talking about margins of error where you've got someone at 200 meters view range and they can quite simply see JC on the move, but they can't see me on the move, and you know when those situations arise, don't you? They arise at the start of the game. They arise when you are pushing and trying to spot other tanks and taking shots from behind brush at 240 meters. So that little bit of extra camo is allowing me to hit these tanks over there and actually not get spotted, because it's just far enough away that even though I'm firing and putting my gun my camo rating just about back to negligible, it's just enough that I can get the gunshots off and still not be spotted. And that's really important, because if you have a tank that doesn't have great DPM and you're not going to be the Monstersaurus with the damage numbers, then you've got to have another way to contribute to your team. And this is a tier 9 game, so I'm keeping targets lit, I'm putting in what little damage I can, and I'm relocating and looking for shots from my teammates. So that's a light tanks game. You're going to see here on Dead Rail, again, I'm playing the same way. And these are the things, I feel like I'm playing this tank fairly competently with a great deal of efficiency, but at the same time, I'm not really able to carry as much as I can in some other tier 8 lights. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting, because you've got tanks like the T54 light. I mean, look at the camo on this. Nut the IS-5, don't get spotted. Now I'm running, I'll give you my equipment loadout in this tank. I'm running vents, not the pen. Now you'll notice that it struggles at times with pen. Your pen numbers are not brilliant. Your pen on the 1390 is 170 on your AP and 248 on your APCR. The reason I run the vents is because I wasn't finding that I was able to pump out huge amounts of damage easily. So what I decided to play the tank as was a spotter. And the vents give you an extra 5 meters of view range, which is really, really handy. Your view range goes up when you're running vents and optics at the same time from 264 to 269. Now that's important. It's not amazing. The RU251 has a better base view range than that. It's got 274, but it can't run vents. The AMX, the T54 lightweight is 264, and the T49 is 264. So that extra 5 meters can be the difference between getting spotted first and getting spotted second. And that's important, especially when you see behind those, when I'm using brush and everything for cover. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of games here where I actually do pretty well, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly why oh, there's that pen. That's a Tiger 2. That's the same tier heavy, all red at the front, like just completely red. And that is not one of the strongest armor profile heavies that you're going to come up against. And I think this is something else that makes me think this tank might be on a bit of a street called struggle, is that when you can see how many heavy tanks there are here. You have an awful lot of heavy tanks at tier 8. There are so many premium heavy tanks at tier 8. It's terrifying. I'll just run you through some of the tier 8 premiums. Glacial 112, the Lerva, the T34, the M6A2E1, the T34 Independence, the IS-6, the KV-5, the IS-5, the IS-2SH, the IS-3 Defender, the IS-6 Fearless. And that's quite apart from your standard tanks like the Tiger 2, the AMX 5100, the VK4502, the Carnarvon, the T32. I mean, the IS-3, the KV-4. I call the T34, excuse me, it's not obviously not a premium tank. What I'm trying to say is that you're at a tier where there's a lot of T49s and there's a lot of T49As and there is a lot of heavy tanks. And those are probably not ideal conditions for the AMX 1390 to be running at the moment. And I also think that I just got a little bit unlucky with teams and I got a little bit unlucky with ping. You know, I mean, look at the back of that Lupus. That's a tier 7 super heavy, and you know, you do not want to be putting shots into the front of tanks like this. You want to really be looking for opportunities to put shots in the flank. If you watched my AMX, my Bat Chat, the Tier 9 video where I talked about how the pen is not an issue, it's because you can move and shake and get to the flanks. And you can still do that with this tank here, but it's just the percentage of heavies seems to be much higher. And that can be an issue. It can be really, really tough. I find this tank does very, very well in Supremacy. I'm able to get a lot of caps and use the camo and the speed to great effect. But let's be honest, some of the other tier 8 lights you're dealing with are very, very strong light tanks, and you are maybe damned with faint praise by being a light tank, but also being in a tier where being a light's great, but you've got the RU251, which is as quick as you, but has a much better top end, has a much better damage output, has 720 more damage per minute than the AMX 1390. So it can legitimately pump damage. It's got a 180mm pen on its AP, and it's also got HE shells that do 102mm a pen and take the DPM up to 3316 for when it runs into other light tanks. Like 102mm a pen with HE is no joke when you have to square off against T49s and AMX 1390s. You can really hurt them. And Borsigs and all those kind of tanks. Like, you can really hurt them in an RU251. You've got the T49, which obviously is another monster tank that you don't want to have anything to do with, that has 560 average alpha on its heat and 780 average alpha on its HE. And its HE has 75 pen, which is going to just pen you everywhere. Like, you're going to be in so much trouble. And then you run against the T54 lightweight, which obviously has slightly more DPM, about 140 per minute. Has 13mm, not 30mm better pen, sorry. It's got 5mm better pen, but, you know, that's running a gun rammer. And if you're running gun rammer, you've actually got 300 more damage per minute. And it's got armor. Like, it's got armor and it's the same speed. Like, has a high top end. So you can see I'm still successful in it. I get out to the flanks, I push it, I shove it, I do my level best. I am cautious where caution is required. I do a lot of capping. I do a lot of spotting for my team. It's just, I didn't do as well as I think I'd like more time behind the wheel, to be honest. I feel like I could raise the numbers. Just give me a chance. Let me in. And I'm picking my targets right. Do you see the target I went for there? I wanted to kill the T49 because those things will mess you up in this particular tank. And then I put my next shot into the back of the IS-3 Defender, because have you tried killing an IS-3 Defender at 2000 DPM in a gun with 170 penetration? it is not a whole lot of fun. IS-5s frontally, all these tanks frontally, you just do not want to know about them. You've got to get to the flanks, you've got to move, you've got to shake it, and you've got to do your level best. I like the tank. I think it's a solid tank. It is something that can contribute to its team. I mean, look at this. This is side shots, and you've got to be really careful. You want to hit just above those drive wheels and just below the spaced armor. The Alpha Strike is good. The gun is not particularly accurate, but it is good for what it's good for, which is being a stealthy bugger and a sneaky bugger. And if it was any better, the accuracy on the gun, I think it would probably be a little bit too strong. Your gun depression is very, very tough. I didn't mention that enough. The 6 degrees is very poor versus the 10 and the 10 on the T49 and the RU251. You're about the same as a lightweight. It's got 5 degrees, but your gun elevation is only 13 degrees, which is horrible. It's really, really horrible. Aim time is particularly good, though. 1.51 seconds base is your aim time on the gun. And if you run your V-stab and your enhanced gun laying drive, you can get it down to 3.1 overall, which is very, very good. You've got the best aim time of any light tank at its tier, which is something to crow about. And your 33.1 horsepower per tonne, well, you saw it. It can keep pace with the RU251, but that's nothing to write home about, mind you. The T49 has 34 horsepower per tonne. The T54 Light has 36.3. So you actually have the worst horsepower per tonne, and you know, the T54 Lightweight has better terrain resistance stats because, I mean, obviously, all that armor must make it go so much better across the ground. I will never understand how the T54 Lightweight can actually weigh 30 tons. The AMX 1390 can weigh 14.54 tons, and the T54 Lightweight has better terrain resistance stats and can bounce shots and has armor. Like, forget about it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was a helpful review for you. I hope it gives you an idea on how to play the AMX 1390, its strengths and its weaknesses. I certainly think it's a solid entry at Tier 8, and I wouldn't be expecting it to get buffed anytime soon. But if it did, if it could have one thing, I'd love for it to have a little bit more view range. Make it a real true scouting light, because it's missing out on a few other bits and pieces, but that view range with a little bit more camo, it's got, another 10 meters view range would make it pretty special. I'd love to see that, and that would give it a really true niche. You've got your RU251s that can do it all and can really pump damage as well, and then you've got your lightweights that have camo, and your T49, which is all about the derp. Why not make this the true spotting French tank? Anyway, good job, Wargaming. I think this is a pretty cool tank. I think I was a bit unlucky with the... small sample size. I'll give you an idea. On NA, I had like 1,500 average damage in it. On the Asian server, I had 1,820. So you can see small sample size is a true thing, and it's very hard to draw direct conclusions. But I think you'll do okay in it. Until next time, boys and girls, look after yourselves. Make sure to keep subscribing and liking and letting the world know about the channel. Remember, I'm doing streams on a Tuesday, 5:30 West Coast time NA, 8:30 East Coast time in NA, and then the same time on a Thursday and the same time on a Sunday NA time. So pop along to those streams. They're getting about 200 people. During the holidays, we get 350, 380 when all the kids are home from school. And enjoy that. And if you'd like to sponsor the channel and help me keep the lights on and the Wi-Fi going, rock on. Until next time, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield.